On to business news now on the programme. Camille Knight is joining me here on set. A shock announcement from the UAE on Tuesday. It's withdrawn from OPEC and the OPEC Plus cartels.
OPEC now faces a double crisis as it tries to manage the energy shock caused by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and now also the departure of one of its more capable members. It's effective almost immediately because the UAE says it will leave on the 1st of May, describing the move as being in the country's national interest. The UAE has a production capacity of more than 4 million barrels per day, but only pumped out about 2.37 million in March. Here's what the energy minister said about the decision.
We believe that the world is currently undersupplied, and our exit at this time is the right time for it because it will have a minimum impact on the price, and it will have a minimum impact on our friends at OPEC and OPEC Plus.
Now, this hasn't had a huge impact on oil prices because the Hormuz bottleneck is the dominant factor right now. US oil hovering around $100 and Brent up 0.3%. What the UAE's exit does do, though, is it sets the stage for a much more volatile oil market once that crisis resolves.
Yeah, so the energy minister says it's about supply. What does he mean by that exactly?
So the UAE is one of the group's largest exporters. In 2024, it was the fourth largest producer after Saudi Arabia, Iraq and Iran. But the Emirates want to increase its capacity and has often expressed frustration at production caps or quotas set by the oil cartel. Its relationship with Saudi Arabia, which is by far the largest producer in OPEC and its de facto leader, has also been frosty, particularly since Riyadh opened up to foreign business under Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and began to challenge the Emirates' position as an investment hub. One analyst says the departure of one of OPEC's largest producers could potentially change the oil market dynamic and throw Saudi Arabia's long-standing role into question. Let's take a listen.
Saudi Arabia has been the central banker of the oil markets. Now, what is Saudi Arabia going to do in this new scenario? Are they going to remain the de facto leader of OPEC? Are they going to manage the market? Or is it going to be a free-for-all market given that the UAE has left? That is the big question at the moment.
Let's move on to something different now. Europe's top commercial plane maker releasing some pretty disappointing quarterly results.
Airbus has reported a drop in profits of more than 50% compared to the same period last year. The company is falling behind on deliveries as it struggles to get enough engines from its American supplier Pratt & Whitney, but bright spots do remain. Brian Quinn has the details.
Losing altitude. Airbus's latest quarterly results show profits at the European plane maker coming in under target, with deliveries falling behind its American rival Boeing for the first time in years. Airbus delivered 114 commercial jets from January through March, down 16% from last year, while Boeing completed 143 orders. Profits were down by more than half on the year, with revenues off 7%. At issue for the Toulouse-based jet giant is a shortage of engines from its U.S. supplier Pratt & Whitney. Late deliveries from Pratt have reportedly driven Airbus to consider legal action to pursue damages, though CEO Guillaume Faury says he hopes it doesn't come to that.
We've not come to the point where we have an agreement, but we continue to work both ways, the dispute on the one hand and a negotiation on the other hand, to constructively resolve the disagreement we have.
There are bright spots, though. The company's defense and space business managed to beat estimates, with profits topping projections by nearly 20 million euros. Orders, meanwhile, remain strong, with no cancellations, even amid jet fuel shortages and price hikes over the Iran war. Airbus is racing to deliver 870 planes this year. With more than 9,000 on its order books, production is backlogged for the next 10 years.
Now to the US, where Purdue Pharma has been sentenced to $5.5 billion in fines.
You'll remember Purdue Pharma was the maker of opioid OxyContin, and these penalties stem from a guilty plea back in 2020 to charges of deceiving government regulators and paying kickbacks to doctors to boost opioid sales. This sentencing now paves the way for the company to dissolve in bankruptcy and use its assets to fund a $7.4 billion settlement to compensate people harmed by the opioid epidemic. That means most of the fines will go unpaid. Several people at the courthouse said the fine was not sufficient punishment for Purdue's crimes. They've called for Purdue's owners, members of the wealthy Sackler family, or executives to face jail time. Let's hear from some of them.
Charging a corporation is a whole lot different than really making the decision makers accountable for what they did. They knew what they did, and yet it shows you that if you have enough money, you can pretty much get away with anything.
It's not justice. What they've done really is ask this company to pay pennies on the dime, for pennies on the dollar, really, for money that they have benefited from killing Americans. They've caused mass destruction. We've lost over 1 million lives in the United States to overdose since this epidemic began. And these are the true architects of the overdose epidemic.
The US District Judge directed Purdue Chairman Steve Miller to apologise directly to victims in the courthouse, saying the company deeply regrets and responsibility for past misconduct.
Camille, thanks very much. Camille Knight there with the business news for us on France 24.